Philip Fracassi is a screenwriter and multi-award-winning author whose work has been translated into multiple languages. I don't think we've had an author like that on our show yet in about the 4.5 years that we've been doing the Writers' Corner live show. So for more on his journey and story, stay tuned. You are watching the Writers' Corner live show. We'll be right back. If you've just joined us, then welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. If you're not following us yet, please do so. Then you'll be notified the next time we go live. In today's show, we're going to be talking to the amazing author and screenwriter, Philip Fracassi. Our live stream is made possible by Creative Edge, StreamYard, and Be Live Media. So a special warm welcome to you, whether you're watching us over on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitch, or also over on Amazon Live. A very warm welcome to you. Now, one of the things we always do on the show is we start the show with 1 or 2 tips to help you level up, because it's one of the things we're passionate about thanks to the pandemic. Authors like yourself are no longer limited to simply talking about your books at a library or at schools or wherever you do that in person. You can now literally pitch your books to an audience worldwide. Now, if you're going live and you're talking about your book over on Twitch, I beg your pardon, over on TikTok or on Instagram, you likely will hold your phone in the portrait mode. And so here's a quick tip for you. If you're going live on any of the other platforms, whether it's Facebook Live or YouTube, for example, and you always wondered why you get those horrible black lines on the side, just turn your phone into landscape and it'll get rid of the black lines. You'll have a bigger screen real estate. And another tip is do use a tripod, because they'll stabilize your phone and free up your hands to be a little bit more animated, and you can page your book and not have to worry about the phone being all jiggly and whatnot. And another quick, my final tip for today is if you're on the road and you want to go live to talk about your books, and you don't have your tripod, use some sticky tape or Tic Tac or whatever it is you can find and stick your phone onto a window. The great thing about that is that your phone will be at the correct 90-degree angle and you'll have front-facing light so that your audience can see you perfectly. So those are my quick tips for today on the show. So now, my amazing guest, my co-host is Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She is an award-winning author herself. She's also a special needs and disabilities advocate, an educational speaker, podcaster, and a ghostwriter. So before we get our amazing author to join us, Mary, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. I'm super excited about our author today. And I was just thinking, this is the month of Halloween in the United States and other various places. And we have had horror authors on for this month. It's great, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for those of you who have not yet met our amazing author for today, Philip Fracassi is an award-winning, multi-award-winning author. And he is known for the story collection Beneath the Pale Sky, which received a starred review from the Library Journal. It was also named the best collection of the year by Rue Morgue Magazines and nominated for a Bram Stoker Award. His debut collection, Behold the Void, won the Best Collection of the Year award. Beneath the Sky, a story collection, was named Best Collection of the Year. And also what we're going to focus on today, though, is his book, A Child Alone with Strangers. Now, he's been published in numerous magazines and anthologies, including Best Horror of the Year, Nightmare Magazine, Blue Static, Southwest Review, and Interzone. So let's not waste any more time and invite our featured author to join us, shall we? Philip, so glad to have you join us today. Thank you so much for making the time. Now, you both an accomplished screenwriter and author. How did you get started, and what was first? Were you a screenwriter first, an author first? How did you segue or marry the two?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for having me, you guys. I was a writer first. I've been, writing since I was a little kid. I started writing when I was in third grade, short stories and stuff like that. And I was the guy like in math class, writing his horror stories in the back of the room and in seventh grade and stuff like that. So it's been a passion of mine since I was very young. I started writing screenplays professionally about 10 years ago. I wrote some movies for Disney, some children's movies, if you can believe it. I wrote a movie for Lifetime Television called Girl Missing that came out in 2015. Um, and then it was right around that time, right around 2015, that I started writing genre fiction, because up until that point I'd only really written general fiction, what would be called literary fiction, non-genre. And I wrote a few novels, and I couldn't, didn't really couldn't sell them, and wasn't getting much traction. But then when I started writing genre fiction in 2015, I sold a story right away, sold another story, and it just kind of snowballed into a career. So it's been a lot of fun, and horror was my original passion. So the fact that I can do it now for a living is a real blessing.
That is so awesome. Congratulations, first of all, to all your success, because that's amazing that you've accomplished so much, and you're doing what there are other authors out there that really want to be doing as well. So it's so exciting to hear that you have been so successful with it, and that you're doing what you love. So between writing and screenwriting, do you have a preference? And do you have a favorite project or accomplishment so far in your career?
I definitely prefer writing fiction. Yeah,
Mm.
I screenwriting is a very different beast, because when you're screenwriting, uh, you're basically creating a platform for other people to build something upon. Writers and or directors and actors and production designers. So you're kind of building the framework, and it's very technical. Um, you have a lot of feedback. You're changing your story for based on budget, based on location, based on actor availability, best based on casting. So it's really more of a team effort, and you're kind of one of the team members. So it's much more of a job when you're screenwriting, whereas fiction writing is more of a passion. It's more of my, it's more of my art, if I may, and that's really what I use to express my voice. It's really where what I want to be doing with the majority of my time. I do still write screenplays. I'm writing a screenplay right now. Um, but like I said, that's more of a, I mean, they're both jobs, right? They both help pay the bills, but screenwriting is sort of a necessary evil in a way, because that side of the business pays, the pay structure is a little higher than what you would normally see on the publishing side, at least, when you're starting out. So um, passion is definitely on the fiction side, but I still kind of do both.
Gotcha. Well, that's
Awesome. That's
amazing.
wonderful. Now, we do want to dive into your book, A Child Alone with Strangers. But just before we do, congratulations. We heard that your short story, Death, My Old Friend, was optioned for a movie. How did that happen? Because I think that's kind of every writer's dream, that would happen. How did that happen?
Yeah, I've optioned a few short stories. I think I have 4 or 5 now that have been optioned, um, and a novel, but that hasn't been published yet. So it's kind of a weird, it's kind of a weird system, the adaptation world. I don't. I have a representative who kind of is out there pitching my work to different producers and stuff like that. So he just had a producer that was interested, um, and that's actually the screenplay I'm writing. So initially they optioned the short story, Death My Old Friend. The producer and the director then went out and started fielding pitches from different writers, and they just weren't finding what they wanted. So ultimately they came back to me, and they said, would you be interested in taking a shot at it? And I kind of pitched what I think the movie would look like, and they were very excited. So they hired me to write the screenplay. So yeah, it's a cool thing. Option, and it's always good to anytime you can, like, not to sound capitalist, but anytime you can monetize your work, it's a plus. So if I get paid a couple $100 for a short story, that's great, and it's my passion, and it's my art, and it's what I want to do. But if I can make more money on that same short story by doing something like a movie option or whatever, then that's wonderful too, because I have bills to pay, and I want to keep writing full time. So it's always fun to be able to to get movie people involved with your fiction stuff. So hopefully that'll keep going. And I have a few more projects that haven't been announced yet. Hopefully in the next few months. So I'm excited about all that.
Well,
Congratulations.
congratulations. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
you should be excited. We're excited, and we will follow you. And we'll have to have you back on so we can keep up with your amazing career and all the fun stuff you have going on. So we want you to tell us about your book, A Child Alone with Strangers. And what do you love about writing horror as opposed to maybe another genre?
Yeah. So yeah, I do have a copy of my book here. This is what it looks
Yeah,
like.
I love the face. I love the cover.
Yeah, thank you. They did a really nice job. It's Talos Press, which is an imprint of Skyhorse, is distributing it, publishing it. Um, uh, yeah, so I'm really proud of that. And yeah, as far as writing horror is concerned, I think what excites me about writing horror is that when you write the supernatural into your story, you kind of remove any and all boundaries, to what can happen in a story, so in what can happen to your characters. And for me, that's really inspiring, and frankly, it's fun to write about things like that, where anything can happen. The universe can, there can be multiple universes, there can be time travel, there can be monsters in the closet, there can be, uh, telepathic children, anything goes. And I think that's a really, really fun element that horror brings to a more traditional story. And even like science fiction genre, they kind of have rules, right? And fantasy, they kind of have their rules too. Not Those aren't wonderful genres, but horror, you can kind of just, anything goes. And I kind of think of my stories and books as supernatural thrillers. They are definitely horror in the horror genre, but there's so much breadth to the horror genre. There's so many different types of horror. Um, so I kind of, when I'm explaining my work to readers, I tend to explain them as supernatural thrillers, or they're thrillers that have supernatural elements and horror elements. So they're very dark and scary, but they're also very fast paced and fun. And I try and always take the reader on a bit of a ride whenever I'm writing a book or a story.
So can you tell us about the book we're featuring today?
About the book, sorry.
Yeah, tell us about the story of the book.
Yeah. So A Child Alone with Strangers is about a 9-year-old boy named Henry Thorne, and who has had a rough go of things. I put him through the ringer a little bit. He has some tragedies in his life, and he finds himself sort of orphaned, and but wealthy because of this trauma that happened to him, and or at least theoretically wealthy. And he's poor Henry is kidnapped, and he's taken to a remote farmhouse in the middle of a giant forest, vast forest. And while he's being held in this abandoned old farmhouse by these horrible people, he begins to realize that there's something in the forest that he can communicate with. And whatever it is that's in the forest outside this old abandoned farmhouse, they want what Henry wants, which is they want the kidnappers gone out of that house. And the what's in the woods has its own reason. Henry obviously has his reasons. So they sort of team up in a way, um, in a very obtuse kind of horror-like way, to do what they can to get rid of these kidnappers. And meanwhile, there's an FBI agent and Henry's guardians who are trying to find Henry and save Henry. So there's it's kind of a crime procedural happening while this sort of horror story is happening simultaneously, and then the two things kind of come together in the final act. And the final act is a real real downhill roller coaster ride. So it's a lot of fun and some crazy stuff. some crazy stuff happens in the last couple hundred pages.
Love the story.
We always love asking authors how they got into horror and how they construct their stories. And it's amazing that every person has a different reason for why they got into horror. But I don't think I've ever heard anyone express it the way you have, that it gives you carte blanche to just about do anything outside of the construct of various rules. So it was an interesting one. It kind of piqued my interest there. And do you write, your stories, are they purely fictional, or do you weave in some elements of your own life or people that you know? We had one author, for example, that's a horror author, and she was telling us, she's a theater sister, and she constructs all her stories while she's in the theater. I mean, we just packed up laughing. We couldn't imagine. So where do you kind of draw your inspiration from, and is it all purely fictional, or is it, where does it come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense because I think writers write what they know, right? And you write what's familiar because you can talk to it. And but yeah, I don't most of my stuff is pretty much 100% fictional. I think if I pull anything from my life, it's you draw from your life experiences. Obviously, you draw from people that you've met. You draw from things you've read about. Obviously, there's little things here and there that you put into your work, but as far as like apples to apples, there's nothing I really put into my work that's from my own life. And I'll caveat that by saying that I have a book coming out in February called Gothic, which is about an aging, older horror writer, and I definitely put in a lot of my experiences as a writer as far as like publishing and agents and that all that kind of like inside baseball kind of information does make its way into the novel. But as far as the plot is concerned, or as far as the characters are concerned, it's all make believe. And with this book in particular, Child Alone with Strangers, uh, it was my first genre novel, my first attempt at a genre novel. I'd written a few novels, like I said, but nothing in the horror realm. And I really wanted it to be what I call a kitchen sink novel. And what I mean by that is I wanted to have all the great tropes that I grew up with, like the Stephen King and Clive Barker and Dean Koontz stuff. Like I wanted to have a telepathic kid. I wanted to have a creature in the woods. I wanted to have the old abandoned farmhouse. I wanted to have all that stuff. I purposely really made it like a big, throwback old school horror novel that would kind of harken back to like those 70s and 80s novels that were being produced at the time. So it's kind of my kitchen sink novel. And then I just kind of found Henry, and then once I found Henry, who's the 9-year-old protagonist, everything else kind of came together around him. Once I had his character down and I knew how he thought and how he acted and how he felt, it was pretty easy at that point just to kind of build this whole world around him and construct this kind of insane plot around Henry's journey. So he's really the key to the whole thing.
That's awesome. So you went OG with this, which is so
Yeah.
cool. I love it. That's a great inspiration for it. So can you read a little bit from your book for us?
Yeah, I can pull a page out and read it. This happens about halfway through the book, but I'm pretty sure it's spoiler free.
Okay.
And out of context, we don't know if it makes any sense, but we'll see. Henry is flying, hurtling through the air, and the air is full of colors. His limbs are bound and powerless, clenched tightly to his torso as his body whistles like a projectile through long, twisting strands of vibrant colors, the consistency of smoke. He's frightened. He knows the end is near, and his flight will soon be rudely and abruptly interrupted by the windshield of a parked car that will crack his head and spill his blood and break his bones. And then the colors will slip into me. Through my broken head, they'll slide through like eels, frenzied and hungry. All the colors in the world will push into my mind, and when I open my eyes, I'll see what they see. I'll see the colors that stir inside people, the vibrancies that tell me things, show me their thoughts, their feelings. At first, I'll think, stop. Then I'll think, more. Henry realizes only now, as the air flutters by his face and the brightly dyed strands of wispy tethers brush his cheeks and forehead, cling to his hair like powder, the colors whipping past him like flags, that his eyes are closed. And so, ready to join reality, he opens them. How's that?
Awesome. I love it. I love the whole color thing. That's really
Yeah, as you
beautiful.
can see from the cover, it's definitely a theme in the book that I won't spoil as to how, but it's a theme throughout the book for sure.
Well, and it's a celebration today because it launches today, right?
Yeah, today is launch day. I'm very excited. It's been a long journey. You know, you write a book from when I started writing it, I think about around 2018, to selling it about over a year ago to Skyhorse, and now with between, there was a whole pandemic between there, in there too. So it's been a long journey. So very excited that it's finally out into the world. Yeah, I'm excited for people to read it.
Wow, congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
that's huge. How many words have you got in that book? That's a massive book. Can you hold it up just a second again?
Yeah,
It's massive.
It's big. It is a
yeah,
big
it's
one.
pretty big. It's 600 pages. It's 175,000 words, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Um, but they did a nice job with the design. I love the red spine and the colors in the front, and it's so it's a nice, bright, shiny book. But yeah, so it's a big one, and it took a while to get it all down. But I wanted that. I wanted it to be like a big world building doorstop kind of novel, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So thank you so much.
Did you have any input into the design of the cover? That's another question we like asking authors, because sometimes the publisher does it all, and other times the author wants complete control over the cover. What happened with your cover?
Yeah, so it really it's case by case with covers, right? So if you are working with like a smaller press, you have a lot more input into what you want the cover to be. With the my last story collection, I actually hired the artist I wanted, and the publisher and I worked together to bring that in. So whereas with a larger publisher, typically what happens is they ask you if you have any ideas. In this case, that's what happened. And I gave them sort of like a bunch of ideas of how I said I wanted to see colors. I wanted to see maybe the silhouette of the boy, of Henry. And, I gave them some other ideas like that. And then they kind of showed me a couple of variations of this cover. And I chose the direction that I preferred. And then that's what they ran with. And then, so I had more input into this cover than I think you do with most bigger publishers. And I'm with like the book I have coming out in June or next July. I'm sorry, with Nightfire and Orbit. That's a Macmillan, so that's a big press. And but they show you images, and they say here's like a lookbook of what we're thinking, and you get to have a feedback to that. And then I'm waiting to see, I think, a couple options, and then you'll kind of like choose which option you prefer. So typically you have a little bit of input, but it does scale depending on who you're working with.
Very nice. Okay, so I have a question. So the child in the book is telepathic, right? So did you interview telepathic people or children with that ability to get to set you up for writing that part of this book, or was it based on just knowledge that you already have?
I think if I was writing about a telepathic person who was an adult and who was living the life of a telepathic person, I may have done that, what you're describing. But because in the book it comes to Henry sort of abruptly, this ability, um, and he doesn't really understand it, it was less about the context of how people live with this kind of ability, and more about the re, I'm using air quotes, the realities of what it is like to have a telepathic mind. So I did was I do what I usually do is I read a bunch of books. I read some books. I read a book by J.B. Rhine. I read about the LeBron Institute, which is all about telepathic studies. And I read a few books I have in my collection behind me. These are all my reference books. So there's a lot of really weird. There's a lot of really weird stuff on these shelves. And I just I pulled from that to explain what goes on with Henry, and what happens with the colors that I sort of was describing in that excerpt. That's actually something that has like a tech. I don't know off the top of my head what it is, but there is a technical term for that with people who
Yes.
have certain abilities where they can feel, and they feel in colors, and they
Yeah.
so it's kind of tied into what's happening with Henry a little bit. So that's kind of how I usually study. But that and the internet are two, books and the internet are two wonderful resources for research.
Yeah, one of my daughters is like that. She feels and sees colors, so things
Oh,
in
there you go.
color.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
so
kind
it's
of a
been
little bit
interesting.
cranked it up to 11, and that's kind of what's going on with Henry in the book. So she may find
Awesome.
it an interesting read.
I will tell her, yes.
Yeah.
My goodness. So you've just had this huge project launched now. So again, congratulations on getting your book out there. What's next for you? What can people expect next down the line in the next couple of months from you?
Gosh, I have a lot going on right now, which is great. I'm really lucky. I'm in a couple anthologies. I'm in an anthology called Close to Midnight, which is put out by Flame Tree Press. I'm in this is a copy of Gothic. This is an advanced review copy of Gothic, which is coming out in very scary in February from Cemetery Dance, and then in July I have a book called Boys in the Valley coming out from Nightfire here in the U.S. and Orbit in the UK. That's up for pre-order right now. I have a children's book coming out called Boy with the Blue Rose Heart, which is coming out I think next month. So all that, and then I have another story collection coming out at the end of next year, and another novel coming out in 2024. But right now, the big ones are Child, Alone with Strangers, and Gothic in February, and then Boys in the Valley in July. And I'm excited about Boys in the Valley because it'll be my first worldwide release with a major publisher who's going to have a big marketing campaign behind it. Stephen King tweeted about it back in February. So there's a lot of momentum for that book. So so some fun things ahead. It's going to be a really fun year. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of work ahead of me, but also a lot of good things happening. So I feel very, very humbled and very blessed and very, very grateful.
Oh, congratulations. Awesome. Big congratulations. Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely, from me as well. And just a huge big shout out to you from our audience. A couple of people saying thanks very much. I really enjoyed the interview today. So big congrats and a huge thanks to our audience. And also, if you're catching the show on the replay, then welcome to you as well. So Philip, thank you so much. And to everyone else watching us there and catching the replay, we'll see you back on the next episode of the Writer's Corner live show. Take care until then. Bye for now.